um, from London. We're all clapping. So thanks for having Richard and myself. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself as well, Richard, to the floor.
Sure. Thanks, Miral. Good afternoon, everyone, and glad to be part of this program's review meeting with the Zimbabwe. And I'm based in India. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Oh wow, I can actually see how people can see on the screen. That's so great. That's really good to get a sense of the room. Thanks so much for sharing the slides, and yeah, hopefully this goes smoothly technologically wise. As Richard was saying, yeah, we're part of a team in Christian Aid that is it's called the Program Quality Team, and there is various different advisors in this team. Richard being one of them on program quality globally, but also advisors that probably you have heard of, like Judy Pan on safeguarding, Karen, who is our advisor on accountability, Nicholas, who is our advisor in cash and market, and resilience, and Matthew on cash and markets, and Luciana, who is our advisor in Jesse. So the reason I'm wanting to highlight and start with that really is because when we look at the way that we work in Christian Aid, and in terms of like looking at partnerships, all of these advisors are there, and it's something that we encourage and welcome, whether it's country programs or regional programs or partners to make use of the resources that we have available, and all of the advisors are very welcoming and happy to provide any guidance or answer any questions that you may have that are specific to their area of expertise. So that's the program quality team. We see an operations team which is where I and Richard sit. So today, we were discussing with Ntombe, and we wanted to have a conversation with you about how Christian A is looking. You can see yourself reflected as a partner organization of Christian Aid. You can see yourself reflected that we are framing as an organization and that we are wanting to develop as an organization. So I think I can't see the screen now. I don't know if you.
Sorry.
No worries. If you want, I can also try. My Teams is not always the best, but I can try. It's the one, yeah, before
Oh,
my screen.
yeah, please proceed, Muriel.
Yeah. Okay, if you can stop sharing yours if you want, and I can see if I can.
It's in order this side. Please proceed, Muriel.
Great, fantastic. So excellence, and what do we mean by operational excellence? It's the promotion and implement support level, or at the Zimbabwe country program level involved in some of these. So, for example, the Zimbabwe country team would have been doing a couple of years as an organization to keep everyone safe, right? Like whether it's partners, the people that we're helping, and the country program in itself. And there at quality at the project level, we've got certain standards, and this is something that we are still developing. So a lot of these pieces are in various different levels of development. But I'm sure that once the minimum requirements are established, the country program may make all of the partners aware of this. We also, as I was saying earlier, we have advisory support and trainings that the advisors can deliver to partners in order to help us again meet certain quality, meet certain criteria that will enable us to do better or quality program. And we have as well monitor evaluation and learning in place to continue the cycle of trying to get better at what we do. A central part of all of these, and you can see it here on sort of in the pink on the right hand side, we talk about partnerships almost as something that goes through the veins of all of these outline, really. So because everything that the organization does and we look into doing it is through partnerships. So it's important that as much as possible, partners are also involved in these processes. But I'll stop this one there, and I don't know if I can't see the question box, by the way. So if anyone is raising their hands or if anyone has any questions, please Richard or Grace, do let me know. Otherwise I will just continue because I can't see the teams at the moment. Right. So if I move on slide, let me see if I can move this. We wanted to talk to the 10 quality standards today. And these 10 quality standards are based, I will show you after these slides, on a framework really from the sector, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But the 10 quality standards are that our work is 12, that's standard number 3, that we ensure that we don't have negative effects and that we have sustainability as we are doing our programs and throughout the course of the life of our programs, that we're able to be engaging with the people that are at the center of our programs and all stakeholders on the programs that we develop, and that we're effective in our partnerships. This is actually one of the standards that Gerhard from the session before was talking to you about, right? Like there is a partnership policy, there are things that we have in place there, and this is as a standard that we are saying we want to abide by. So effective complementary partnership, that we have robust M&E is our standard number 7, and that we actually act on feedback, that we seek feedback at all levels of our implementations is a standard number 8. 9 is that we have effective systems as an organization, as a country program, and that our staff is well trained and is well looked after. And number 10 is that we manage the resources, Christian aid resources, country program resources in an effect. I do have to meet Christian aid humanitarian standards for quality and accountability. Now you would have heard of these that was verified and certified against these standards, and we look at it as a whole organization, right? Like we do humanitarian work, we do long-term development work, we do advocacy work, and so these equivalent in our applicable to all of the work that we do, particularly as we look at voice, we look at putting people at the center of everything that we do. And so from a partner perspective and from, you know, of course, all partners have their own organization, their own organizational values and missions and visions. So we, you know, whilst we have our own 10 standards in Christian aid, we also wanted to highlight that these are based on more sectoral, broader standard that it's applicable to all of the sector and the people that are trying to do humanitarian aid or development work. And so that there is a relatability for you. And if you as a partner in the future, or, you know, or you're already thinking, perhaps you have already heard about the CHS and you're thinking, well, actually, I would like to be having my organization verified or put through the lens of CHS. And so you know that our own standards are in line with that of the CHS. And we can talk about these more, you know, if after this session and as you digest all of the information that we're going through, I'm happy to see this. But
sorry, Muriel, just before
yes.
you proceed.
Yes.
If you can kindly check from your end, there is a bit of interference on the audio. So it's affecting us this side.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly, but there is a bit of interference.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're gonna check. Sorry.
Yeah, it looks like it's sorted now. So if you can proceed.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, we'll do.
Thank you.
So we wanted to just unpack a little bit more, so these are the quality standards. You can see what exactly we need to get through. For example, just move this. We have Christian Aid's work is appropriate and relevant to the needs and rise and capacity of the poorest and most marginalized people. So what are we looking in here is that we're able to respond to primary stakeholders' needs in the most appropriate way. So by doing needs assessments, by understanding that we do regular gender, power, and conflict analysis, as this underpins all of the work that we do. So that's the quality standard number 2. Christian Aid's work is effective, relevant technical standards. You would have heard, for example, Sphere Guidance or CHS, which I just made some reference about. So that's what we mean. We also mean that Christian Aid develops organizational and context-specific frameworks and guidance to ensure programming is effective, and that we are able to support partners to implement projects that are technically sound and vice versa. So, for example, I'm just putting an example here on cash and markets because this is one of the technically sound areas of expertise that we have in the program quality team. So, as an organization, for example, we have committed ourselves to ask, why not cash, right? Like, why will I not implement a project that is innovative, that is technically sound, that is effective? Can we ask ourselves, why shouldn't we do it with cash, right? And use as a sort of default modality of intervention. So not as a sector, but as a programmatic area, something like a methodology that we can use when we're thinking of delivering our programs. That's just an example there. Quality standard number 3, we're looking at Christian Aid makes or make sure that no one is left behind and tackles gender and social inclusion. What are we saying by this? What do we mean by this? So we mean that we understand that every person has a capacity and a vulnerability and is different in all aspects and intersecting ways, and that Christian Aid programs take power imbalances into account. I was talking to you about earlier about how we say we're going to look into give prophetic voice and looking into power where we're doing our programming. So this talks to that very directly. So Christian Aid collects information that will help reach those most in need, and we do take into account sex, age, disability, ethnicity, caste, gender, religion, and social status as intersections of a person's life that can influence the type of programming that we may do. So that's what we mean about being inclusive and about leaving no one behind with the standard 3. So an example of this, you probably have again seen similar pictures here, and this comes directly from our advisor or the person that sits in our team, in the program quality team, who is the JESI advisor, can help advise on how do we meet these standards, how do we make sure, what are the tools that we can use to facilitate that we meet these standards. And so we're just putting here a sort of a representative picture of what we mean, by where we want to get into a place of justice, a place where everyone can see in this case, the baseball. Is it baseball? I'm gonna get this wrong. Maybe it's a cricket match or something. I think it is baseball. Game here. There's no barriers, so everyone gets into a place of justice, and this is what we're trying to get to. And standard number 4. around avoiding to have negative effects and ensure long-term benefits of primary stakeholders. So it talks a lot about sustainability and making sure that when we're designing our programs, that when we are looking into proposals, that we're also looking with that long-term sustainability in mind. So this may be environmental impacts that our programs may have, that we have an exit and responsible strategy from the moment that we're thinking of intervening, and that we look into the risks to the stakeholders of our programming. So I will stop here and I'll hand over to you, Richard. I am continue sharing my screen if that's helpful and it's smoother.
Sure. Yeah, that will be helpful, Mirel. You can continue to share. So as Mirel was explaining, there are 10 standards. So we have looked at 4 of them. We will look at the remaining 6. I will take you through the remaining 6. So the 5th quality standard talks about our work, ChristianAid's work, actively engaging with primary stakeholders through communication, participation in decision making, feedback, and complaints, which is basically what is more commonly known as the accountability framework. So if you are familiar with the accountability framework, you would find these components of communication, participation, feedback, and complaints, etc., being part of that. So we want our work, ChristianAid's work and programs and projects to be engaging with the primary stakeholders and also helping them to participate in the decision-making process. And another aspect of the standard is also promoting the agency of local, primary stakeholders. So strengthening the partners and communities where we work, so that they have, the capacity is built, and then they will be able to take forward the process. And so and also ensuring that marginalized and disadvantaged groups, they are given an opportunity to participate in the decision-making process. So that is very, very important. And as you might have realized by now, each of these standards, they are not, standalone. They overlap with other standards as well. So it is not the 5th standard is very, very standalone, or it operates in silo, but it is again linked to other standards that we have already seen and that we will be seeing in the next few minutes. And another aspect is information sharing. So communication includes sharing of information about ChristianAid, about our projects, the work that we do, and also how our staff can engage and how they will behave, how they are expected to behave, and what is it that we want to deliver through our work. So all these things are communicated to these primary stakeholders. And feedback and complaints mechanism, especially community-based feedback and complaints mechanism, is a critical aspect of ChristianAid's work. Most of you would have been involved in setting up such mechanisms that we are making, whether there is anything that needs to be improved and whether there are any grievances or complaints in the way we implement the projects, various aspects of that. So we provide a platform and an opportunity, as well as we have mechanisms in place which are effective. And also to prevent negative effects such as exploitation or abuse, etc. And so we have in the 4th standard and the 5th quality standard is related to, one is accountability, as I mentioned, and the other one is safeguarding. So this particular slide explains how, what is the responsibility at various levels. So what is the responsibility of ChristianAid and what needs to be done at ChristianAid level and what needs to be done at the partner level. So that is what you see on the left-hand side, the wheel on the bottom. And then we also at the project level, how do we integrate safeguarding and accountability mechanisms along the life cycle of the project? So there are several things that are listed. There may not be time to get into the details, but then, for example, the third one on the right-hand side, the community accountability assessment. is a very critical aspect, which helps us to know where do we stand in, and also listening to the communities and the primary stakeholders. So what is it? How do they want CRISTIN-8 and the partners to engage with them, or share the information with them? What is the best method, or how do they want us to set up the feedback and complaints mechanism? So there are several things here which will help us to achieve this quality standard. And then the sixth one, which we have already looked at in detail in the previous session, which was facilitated by our colleague Gerald. So this talks about effective and complementary partnership with other actors. So partnership, as I'm sure he would have explained, it's not just the implementing partner relationship, but also it's a wider term that includes the relationship that we build with various stakeholders at various levels. And here the standard talks about the purpose is to promote local agency, which is basically building the capacity of local communities and partners, and also to deliver sustainable change. So CRISTIN-8, leverages the knowledge, the expertise, and the networks of the partners and the agencies that we work with, the institutions and the people, and also collaborating with them so that we are able to bring about the transformational and sustainable change. So ultimately, the impact that we want to create or that we want to deliver should be done along in collaboration with others, and also learning from others. It's not just CRISTIN-8, transferring the knowledge to its partners or to other agencies, but also learning from other actors, local actors and communities with whom we work. So this is about the sixth one. The seventh one focuses on the monitoring and evaluation aspect of our work. So, how can we ensure that we have a rigorous and robust monitoring and evaluation, and also data management? So, along with our partners and ensuring that the work that we do, that we have planned earlier, the projects that we plan is implemented, according to the timeline, with the proper utilization of the resources that we have, and also ensuring that it is the data is being collected and then reported back to our supporters. And here, in terms of data management, there are some things that I highlight. One is about the quality of the data that we collect or that we generate, and also managing the data responsibly, and also using the data effectively and efficiently across the organization. So it is not just monitoring and evaluating just for the sake of doing it, but also ensuring that we use the data for our own learning, as well as to improve the projects and programs that we implement. So the learning from the monitoring and evaluation practices or processes feeds back into strengthening or enhancing the quality of our implementation and the planning aspect. And the eighth one is again linked to what we saw in the seventh standard. This is focusing on learning, continuous learning, and also feedback and complaints are welcomed and addressed. So we look at the monitoring process, the evaluation process, the research that we conduct, the feedback and complaints that we receive. We look at all these as things as things to learn from. So these are all learning opportunities, which then will help us to improve quality of our programs, and also adapt ourselves to the demands or the changes that is required. And in some places we may innovate, they innovate the programs that we implement. So the learnings, the focus is on not just learning, but also learning would also include applying what we learn in the ongoing as well as the new programs and projects that we might develop, and also sharing with our primary stakeholders so that they can, because they are the providers of the data, we want to give it back to them so that they can use the information or the knowledge for strengthening their capacity and their processes. So that is about the eighth one. And the ninth standard is more of organizational level. So till standard 1 to 8 is primarily, in terms of the programs that we implement and the external thing. But 9 and 10 primarily looks at 9 specifically looks at the systems that CRISTIN-8 has. We want it to be efficient and effective, and also it talks about competent and well-supported staff. So in terms of staff having the right skill set, and staff safety, their well-being, so that they're able to give their best and implement the projects and programs. So, and also systems, we talk about several of them, like for example, the financial systems or the staff management systems, etc. So we want, the standard talks about the systems and staff being effective, efficient, and competent, and well supported. And then the last and final quality standard is about effective management of resources. So how does Christian Aid manage its resources effectively? Like for example, whether we disperse the resources at the right time when it is needed, whether it is being used responsibly by various stakeholders for their intended purpose. So ensuring that the risk related to money being diverted for other purposes for what it is not intended for is addressed or mitigated, and also ensuring that we get good value for money. So what we invest in terms of the resources, it could be financial resources and other resources, it yields the desired result, and there is a good value that is being generated. And also ensuring that the work plan is available and it is being followed, and also resources are adequately allocated for example, monitoring and evaluation and learning purposes, etc. So these are some of the things that comes under the 10th standard. So these are the 10 quality standards. I'm sure it helps you to understand how Christian Aid as an organization, along with its partners as well as primary stakeholders, would like to move in the coming months and coming years, so that we deliver the best, we implement the programs and projects with quality. So thank you so much for this opportunity. We close here. Miral, you would like to add anything?
Thanks, Richard, and thanks everyone. That was very fast, 10 quality standards, and I hope that at least it gives a flavor or an idea of what we're aiming for, what we would like to achieve, and we hope that partners also see themselves already related to these standards. A lot of these things I'm sure are not new and are not something that some partners are already doing. So I would love to hear some reflections, some comments, any ideas of what people in the room have.
Thanks, Miral. We are still checking in the room if there is any hand. And my colleague David is also checking online from the participants online if there are any hands.
That's great.
Julia has something to say.
Yeah.
Tell them to not be.
Confirm you got.
I cannot hear anything. Can you hear easily? Can you tell me what was?
Okay, yes. So our colleague here is appreciating the presentation that yourself and Richard made, and it's quite exciting. But then they need more clarity on standard number, the one on inclusive gender and equity. If they're asking if you can add more clarity on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Standard number 3.
Standard 3, yeah. I can go back to it. Let me just see if I can just share here. Standard. Oh, this is loading. I'll go back to sharing. hopefully you can see here standard number 3. Did they mean this one? So Christian Aid works, make sure no one is left behind, and tackles gender and social exclusion. If it, can I confirm that they meant this one in the room?
Yes, that's the one, Muriel. Please proceed.
Okay, so what we mean by this one really, it's that that we are able to do, for example, if I talk about practical examples, is that people, when we are doing a project, right, when we are designing a project, or on the lifestyle of the project, or the lifeline of the project, or a program, that we understand from the beginning, when doing programming, what are the different intersecting areas that the person that we want to serve, that we want to help, interacts in the society, in the context, in the community or the village that they are. So social exclusion, is this person an able-bodied person, or are the people that really do ask the question for this? That's what I was referring earlier. If there is a desire, for example, let's say in the next year you are thinking, well, actually the programs that we want to be developing are really looking into tackling gender inequalities in X community, right? So then as Christian, we were able to offer some advice on what tools to use, what steps to follow, to ensure that your programs are as in line as possible with data, to understand who you are, how the beneficiary or the person that we're helping is, all of their intersections will mean that we may need to adapt and create programs that we might have, of the social status of that person in that specific community, and so on. So that's kind of like what we wanted to get to with this particular standard. But there is a possibility to have more information and go in depth with this with our Jessie advisor and gender advisor in Christian Aid.
Yes. Thank you very much, Muriel. I can see she's nodding her head. You have made it very simple now. She works in the humanitarian side of things, and she interacts a lot with these issues. That's the reason why she wanted to understand it much better.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Is there any other questions or any other reflections?
I'm just checking around the room. It looks like everyone is smiling. They are quite excited about what you shared. So we are fine for now.
Muriel, can I just add a couple of things?
Yes, come in, Richard. Yes.
So as Muriel was explaining in the initial few minutes of this session, she was talking about something called as the minimum requirements. So each of these quality standards are broken down into smaller, actionable items or points. So for example, the one on gender inclusion and social equity. So we have certain action or action points which we expect the organization as well as the partners and the projects and programs to meet as we implement the projects. So those minimum requirements also will help us to understand how the quality standard can be achieved through small actions. So but we didn't get into the details because we didn't have time. But then if somebody is interested, they can always go through the list of minimum requirements. Currently, it is being reviewed, so it will be made available in a few weeks' time. So once that is available, then we will also integrate it into several other processes, like, for example, the annual reporting. Yeah, thank you.
Both partners and country program staff or people that are working directly for Christian Aid in Zimbabwe, and it's that do request trainings, do request information from us, because we'll be more than happy to support requirements. on like a more sort of a specific training, for example, induction or a training specifically with the Jesse advisor at Christian Aid, or with the accountability advisor at Christian Aid, and so on. So we're here to help, and that's something that I wanted to mention as a key takeaway. But if there's no more questions, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having us, for inviting.
Thank you.
First half of the day, and we have done quite well in terms of the things that we have learned. And I think I want to keep emphasizing the idea is we are good programmers, we are good financial managers, but we want to make sure that in whatever we are doing, when we go to the communities, to the people, that we do it in a way that maintains the highest levels of quality. So in whatever we're doing, we need to make sure that, for instance, beneficiaries don't stay for more than 2 hours. We need to make sure that almost every cent that is intended for the community actually reaches to the community. There is no misuse of funds. We are working like partners. We are also trying to make sure that these quality standards have become a part of our way of working. So with that, I think we've come to the end. I know Kevin is distributing the meal tickets, and as soon as this is done at 1 o'clock, we've been invited to proceed to go and get our lunch. Anything else? Nothing, right? We are all hungry, so we can go and have something to bite. 5 to 2, yeah. Okay, yeah, there's an international presenter at 2 o'clock. So if we can be here seated by 5 minutes to 2, so that we can just then do all the logistics of putting things in place, and then by 2 o'clock we can get going in terms of the presentation. So without any further ado, it's time for eating.